Hello, it's Carolyn here with,
Hi, yes, Belle.
and we are making our weekly video kind of focused on the practices, the herbs to connect with. And we had thought at one point, just for our kind of busy lives, that maybe we'd record these all ahead of time. And we said, no, we should do it as we go along, because this is the one place where we weave in, what's happening like right now, immediately. And so as it turns out, just want to acknowledge that today we're recording this Wednesday, the 25th, on the second anniversary of George Floyd's murder. And we had meant to record it last night, but we were just too disturbed, ungrounded. We were being with our frustration, our anger, our sadness about the horrific shooting of children at an elementary school in Texas. And Yazbel did this really good thing. She called me on the telephone, something that doesn't happen anymore. We're stuck in our social media, but she called me on the telephone. You want to pick up that story, Yazbel, why you called?
Yeah, so we were scheduled to record this, and I just felt too frazzled. I just couldn't talk about grounding when I felt so like disconnected. And I decided to instead just call and see how you were feeling about it, and also kind of to break the news, because it was breaking news about the shooting in Texas, yet another one. And one of my first thoughts was, we need to do something about this. And it starts with our politicians. I noticed that there's like primaries coming up. So we have something that we can do instead of just sending prayers.
And when we were talking, like we do so much by text, or like if you had texted me, I would have looked at the headlines, I would have looked at the news, and then I would have just been by myself and like kind of drawn into the same replaying of the pattern. Because you called and we talked, it broke the way we just always reacting, and we connected person to person. So that's an invitation of something simple to do, like just reach out and talk to someone about your frustration. And then of course, joining with other people to take action is what then moves us to do different things, whether like this is your issue and you're going to work with every town for gun safety, or you're going to get involved with local politics, or you're working on another issue, but it's related, because things are really interwoven. The other good thing we did was we talked about how this week of connecting with the earth and some of the practices, very simple practices, could help us. Like I said, like, this is the Earth Week, and the big practice that I suggest, or that comes in the emails, is just going outside, standing on the earth. And this could be something you do throughout the whole time of walking the ways. You might go to one spot. This is a practice that is popular and effective. People cultivating nature awareness. You go to the same spot, and maybe you like turn and look all the way around, 360. Find yourself in that space. And as you go through the different weeks, you pay attention to what changes, what stays the same. And then you want to go and connect downward. I do this a lot with the meditations that I lead, like the idea you're invited to go inward, to use your imagination, to imagine connecting down through your feet, almost as if you have little roots, like be like a tree, grow down into the earth, and make that connection to the soil and to everything in the earth, which includes also our ancestors. Our ancestors, bone and ash, are there, and ancestors who have been through many difficulties. So you can call upon them as we're connecting with earth to help us to move through and to change things. And so yesterday, after we talked, I did just go outside. I was in my yard. I stood on the ground. I pulled some weeds. I walked. And it did give me kind of a bigger perspective. And Yazbel, what did you do?
I didn't want to. I just didn't want to go outside, and it's a lot more difficult for me because of where I live. It's just so paved over. So instead, I decided to nourish myself. I took a hot bath. I put on a clay face mask.
Play.
I made a really strong nettles infusion so that I could drink it throughout the day today. And I repotted one of my plants. I have a few more to repot, but I decided it was good for me to like put my hands in some soil and repot one of my plant babies.
Nice. And how did you feel after?
I felt more grounded, and it actually, I think it helped me because I was like super frazzled, and I think it like soothed my nerves a little bit to just do that practice.
Connecting with earth, grounding us, not that it makes everything like better, but it supports us. And also, okay, we were talking a bit yesterday, like what are we really doing? Like in walking the ways, the work we're doing, does it have any impact? You know, it's like a big questioning time. Like we keep ending up in this place. What are we doing? Does it matter at all? And I was thinking about how the practices that Yazbelt brings to us and the way that you connect us to earth, all the elements in anywhere that you live, like in the city, even, you know, people are like, oh, I can't connect with nature, but then you're there with your plant companion right there. And it helps us reorient our connection to earth. And I'm reading this amazing book, Amit Ghosh, The Nutmeg's Curse. And it's a lot about like how colonialism is also a cause of climate change. And one of the points is that the colonists who came, settlers who came, this European, had more of a idea of like the earth is a resource to be used. And then it also impacted, I looked at people who had different ways and different relationships into the earth as, you know, just impediments who could be removed. But that we and walking the ways, and particularly the practices that you bring, Yazbelt, help us reorient away from like earth is a resource to earth is we are part of the earth, we are connected to the earth. And there was this wonderful quote in here. And the quote is, the differences between Indian and European conceptions of living on the land have never been more eloquently summarized than by the Oglala Lakota chief Standing Bear. We did not think of the great open plains, the beautiful rolling hills, and winding streams with tangled growth as wild. Only to the white man was nature a wilderness, and only to him was the land infested with wild animals and savage people. To us, it was tame. Earth was bountiful, and we were surrounded with the blessing of the great mystery. And, you know, this is a way of relating to land, the elements, or the plants, people, animals, that we can cultivate no matter what culture we come from, or, you know, like I've been shaped by this culture. I know it's in me of land as a resource, but I don't have to accept it. I can take some lessons from Yazbelt and start to have these different experiences with plants, with the ground beneath my feet. And that might be the right segue to this week's practice of working with nettles, is it? Or is there something else?
Yeah, I think so. But I just want to respond to one thing that you said. It was about like taming the land, the wild land. I think that really resonates with me, like the wild part of it.
Mhm.
Like connecting with nature and actually finding nature in Manhattan,
Mm,
to me, is a wild practice.
mm,
I'm joining the group called the Wild Movement,
mm,
and it's about like really like rewilding ourselves. Like, you know, it's based kind of like on Women Who Run with the Wolves, but I think there's something there, like the taming maybe that's why there's so much trouble, because we keep taming ourselves. I think it's important to like nurture that wildness inside of us a little bit, like, give it a little bit of love.
Give it a little bit of love.
Yeah.
I mean, like wild and natural and tame are, have different kinds of ideas of meaning. Like another essay book I'm reading, like some cultures don't have any idea of wild because they haven't made it other. Like it just being with, and in a way, something we would call wild is just part of who they are. So they don't like label it as wild, which is, I think is kind of like what that quote is. But we who have lost that connection, yeah, we have to re-wild ourselves.
Yes.
And it's possible, and people are doing it in different practices. And this Earth Week can be a time to like tap into that.
Yeah. All right, let's do it.
Okay, let's go to that.
Let's talk about the Earth Week. So I created, whoops,
We're at the end.
Okay, so here we are. I wanted to show the Walking the Ways workbook. If you haven't already, I invite you to take a look at pages 8 through 11. That's where all of this information that I'm going to share with you is. Not all of it, but a lot of it.
And that, by the way, that's on the download page. There's the overview of the ritual that's kind of stays the same every year. And then the workbook is, we change things. We do this differently every year. So this is specific to this year.
So this week we are working with the Ace of Earth, and it's Nettle in the Herb Crafter's Tarot. And one of the messages out of these three, the one that sticks out the most to me is take the next step, even if it hurts. And I think that could mean like a lot of different things. By considering the space that we're in right now in the world, I think it means for me, it means standing up and maybe speaking up and out where I normally wouldn't. And also like taking responsibility for maybe not doing enough when I could. So I guess that's the part that hurts for me. Do any one of the statements stick out for you, Carolyn?
I mean, we have talked about that one, take the next step, even if it hurts. And, like, I have sometimes gone and done things like activist things, or gone to a meeting, or like, oh, I don't want to go. And then once I go and do something with others, it feels good, But let your gift take root in the physical, I think is that's the one where I need to do work, because, I think a lot with my mind, or I write a lot, and I sometimes feel like, okay, my writing, my sharing messages, that's part of my action. But there is about, physically joining with others, being together, not just in my mind, connecting with other people, have something physical manifest. I mean, in the physical manifestation could be a new law, or an ordinance in my city, like maybe something is more local to where we live. So that's the one that strikes me.
Cool. So what we're gonna do is craft a nettle infusion. Susan Weed says nettles are an energetic changer, kidney, adrenal alley, digestive restorative, a respiratory strengthener, an ally for women, a hair and skin nourisher, and a prompt hemostatic. There were other things on that quote, but I shortened it to this because nettles, it just does so many things. It's packed with vitamins and minerals. And if you've ever had an infusion, like the way that Susan Weed suggests, it's like you're tasting the earth. To me, it's like a very pleasing type taste, and I crave it sometimes.
Is this, I think you told me, was this the first herb you worked with, the first plant you worked with when we were doing this, connecting with?
Yeah, so nettles was one of the first, well, I think it was the one that I worked with exclusively. It was nettle. I definitely, because I heard about like Susan Weed's method of making infusions and also like just working with one herb for a whole year.
Mm,
So for like 6 months, I made a nettles infusion every day.
wow.
And well, that's not true. I made it, I was drinking it every day, but I didn't finish the whole thing. So like one infusion would last me 2 days or something like that.
You were drinking it every day.
I was drinking it every day. Yeah. And that's kind of like how it works. Like after like the 6 months, I didn't really feel like I needed it every day. So I kind of like started weaning myself off. But what it does is it like works to like restore you from the inside out. So because it's like what it's doing is kind of like invisible, it does take a long time. It's not like taking a pill where it works immediately. This works over time.
That reminds me of a couple of things, like I think one of the emails, like properties of the earth, like earth things do not move quickly, and that's a good anecdote to our modern life where everything moves quickly. So if you tend to something, how to take it in and invest time in doing it. And also this brings me like a point that we always need to reiterate, is that this is a retreat in everyday life. And, we're going to be providing different prompts, different things to go on to. But if you, for example, you out there, if you became just nettle and you're like, okay, this is it, you don't have to go on and do the other practices. You could just stay with nettle, just to let you know. And then or you want to try all 4 weeks, but then you're like, oh, it was plantain, it was nettle. You might find through the experimenting through the weeks which one you want to follow. But you can't go wrong, you can't fall behind. If you spent your whole time with nettle, if that's all you did, it would be great.
But I invite you to work with the other herbs too, just to test them out.
Yeah. Oh, what's homeostatic? Balance? Like it helps balance you?
Yeah. No, hemostatic, that stops bleeding.
Oh, okay, stops bleeding. Got it.
Yeah. So here is another picture of nettles, and it's called Urtica teosea. And I showed this picture with collecting nettles with gloves on. I think it's really important to do that because if you look at it close up, this is what it looks like. And those little syringes, if you've ever been stung by nettles, they the stinging can last for hours. And I'm talking about like 10 hours. 10, 12 hours of stinging, continuous stinging.
This reminds me of our love theme and how thorns are in the Hawthorne lovers card of the Herb Crafter. And like it's a lesson in like love isn't always like just sweet and pleasant, to get the love of nettles, right? Like nettles wants to love us and bring us healing, but we have to work with the thorns. We have to be prepared. It's trying to teach us a lesson.
Yeah, one thing that I found interesting was that which I don't really know about this, but in the book it says the tiny poison-filled syringes under leaves and stem glisten in the light. I mean, it's poison. Like I don't know. Can it be? That could be why it like hurts so much. And or I don't know if it like hurts. It's more like
Itchy.
others. It's just like a throbbing. But sometimes the poison is what hurts, or what we think is a poison.
What we think, and then we got to take it and work with it.
What I mean is that's what heals, not hurts. That's what heals.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, that's looking at our history in this country. I'm United States, not everyone is in the United States, but that's our context. Like, we don't want to look at history, we're banning books, but like going through is like the thorns of the nettle. It's like we have to work with it, move through it, metabolize it. That's what's going to bring the healing.
Yeah. Since you mentioned the rose, the thorns of the rose are a lot bigger.
Yeah.
This picture is like super magnified.
So they're really like really tiny.
They're like really, really small.
Mhm.
Yeah, really, really tiny. Like it's when I first looked at it, actually I went with Letitia. She was the one who introduced me to nettles. She's the one who wrote this book. So she said, I'm going out to collect some nettles to make a nettles pesto. And I was like, I want to go too. So then she introduced me, and she had a magnifying glass, and I saw the little syringes, and I still got some.
Nice.
Yeah. Oh, so this is what nettles looks like when it's dry. And to make infusions, it is better to have the dried plant because the cell walls are more porous and it releases the medicine easier than if it was fresh. I would say if it was fresh, maybe eat it or make a pesto, like have it like a salad or something like that. But for the infusion, it's best to have the dried plant. That's the best way to extract all of the plant material. I mean, the minerals, the vitamins and minerals. So in order to make an infusion, I wrote half a cup. Susan Weed says to use 1 cup.
Oh, it's a lot.
Yeah. So I just put half a cup. I would say try it out, see what it feels like. And then if you really want to do the Susan Weed way, then do 1 cup of nettle per quart size mason jar or French press like I like because it's just easier. You use boiling water and a 4 through 8 hour steep time. So it's basically made just like a tea. The difference is the amount of plant material, which you're using a whole lot more versus, and also how long you steep it. Like Carolyn today is drinking.
I have a little tea. This is what I had time to make.
She made a tea. So she used one of those tea balls, which is fine, but she's not drinking an infusion. She's having a tea.
I'm having tea, so it's good, but I'm not getting as much of the minerals, the healing properties. Like,
yeah,
my French press got contaminated with coffee, so I need to like clean it out so that I can be prepared to do the overnight ones.
yeah. I mean, you could also use a mason jar, but then you need to have like a cheesecloth or a strainer.
All that, yeah.
You kind of like then you need to have another jar.
French press is good, yeah.
Yeah, I like the French press, but the herbalist way is the mason jar.
And you know, if you want to just like kind of beat the herb, like it's like the slippery slope. Like make yourself a tea. Like start, because I'm not good at this stuff, you know. I think, or that's the message I tell myself, you know, on I'm in a hurry, whatever. But I'm making this tea and I really like it. I'm like, oh, I really want to do this now. I want to feel that healing that comes from the longer time. So I'm going to make an infusion.
Yeah, you should see what it feels like. And you know, it's like one way to do it, like when I did it over that long period of time, I just made it a part of my nighttime routine. So as soon as I started getting ready for bed, I would put the water to boil.
It's like brushing your teeth. Like I don't think about brushing my teeth anymore. I just do it. So.
It just becomes a part of your like everyday routine. So yeah, and then to me it's so easy because just boil the water, pour it over the herbs, and then put the infusion in the fridge. I like it cold, but some people, they drink it room temperature. Like Letitia, she leaves hers on the counter. So she
Cool.
drinks hers room temperature, but I like it cold.
Cold can be good for the summer. Like, it's like something refreshing for us.
Yeah, yeah, I like it cold, so. What else do I have here? Oh, so these are other types of infusions that you could make that could also help your body from the inside out. So dandelion, echinacea, hawthorn,
Or
linden, oats, tulsi, they all have different, they work the body in different ways, but these can all be used as nourishing herbs.
so like teas, you often combine different ingredients. Are infusions, is it kind of better, or does it matter, like to focus on one? Or do you mix sometimes?
Yeah, like for example, the fact that you're using so much plant material, that you're supposed to use an ounce if you're gonna do this healing wise way. You can also split it and do 3 herbs.
A little
Like
less.
for example, just looking at this list, I could put nettles, oats, and tulsi, or nettles, oats, and linden. That could be really good. Yeah.
Okay, I'm ready to get my act together and make an infusion. And it's just an invitation for people, lots of ways to meet nettles. And as we go through the weeks, there'll be different, we'll work with different plants, but we're also, but will bring us like different processes that we can use and mix. So this is, we're gonna try and keep it to 20 minutes. I bet we went a little over because we always get going, and it's always good to talk with you, Yasbelt.
It's always good to talk with you.
And we hope that this provides some support for you walking the ways, and we'll be back next week. Bye.